The worst day of Maya's life happened on a Tuesday. Her husband of 12 years had chosen a Tuesday afternoon to tell her he did not love her anymore. They were sitting in the kitchen, in the same house where they had eaten breakfast together every morning for a decade. The coffee was still hot. The sun was coming through the window. Everything was normal, except that her entire life was ending. "I just do not feel it anymore," David said. He could not even look at her when he said it. "I do not know when it changed. I just woke up one day and realized I was looking at a stranger." Maya had wanted to scream. She had wanted to break things. Instead, she had sat there and nodded, because that was what she did. She was a woman who nodded when her husband told her she was not enough. She was a woman who smiled at the right times and said the right things and still ended up alone. The divorce took 3 months. It was clean and quiet, which somehow made it worse. There was no drama, no fight, no final moment where he came back and realized his mistake. There was just paperwork and the slow understanding that the life she thought she would have was not going to happen. She sold the house. She took half of everything, which was more money than she needed, but less than she deserved. She drove north, away from the city where everyone knew her story. She drove until she found a town so small that it barely existed on maps. And then she drove past that town, into the mountains, until she found a cabin that was isolated enough to feel like the end of the world. The cabin had been empty for years. The real estate agent did not even try very hard to sell it. Nobody wanted to live this far out. Nobody wanted a place where you could not see your neighbors, where the forest pressed in close, where at night, the silence was so complete that it felt like the world had ended while you slept. It was perfect. She bought it with cash. She bought supplies in the town, stocking up on canned food and flour and things that would last. She bought books and wine and a coffee maker that was too expensive for the small kitchen. She was going to spend the next year reading and sleeping and learning how to be happy alone. That was the plan. Everything changed on a night in October. Maya had been at the cabin for exactly 1 month. She was sitting on the porch in a chair that creaked when she moved, drinking wine that was slightly too warm, when she heard the sound. It was not a normal forest sound. The normal sounds she had learned to recognize in the past month, the crack of a branch as a deer moved through the trees, the rustle of something small moving through the leaves, the wind through the pine needles. Those sounds were gentle. They belonged. This sound was different. This was a sound of pain. She stood up slowly. The forest was dark and she could not see more than a few feet past the porch light. But the sound came again. A low, broken whine that turned into something like a snarl. Then silence. Maya should have gone inside and locked the doors. That was what a smart woman would do. She grabbed a flashlight instead. The forest was darker than she had imagined possible. The flashlight beam cut through it like a knife, but the shadows beyond the light were complete and absolute. She walked slowly, following the sound that had stopped, listening for it to come again. It came from the left. She turned toward it, moving through the trees carefully, trying not to trip on roots and stones. Her heart was beating so hard, she could hear it in her ears. This was stupid. This was exactly the kind of thing that happened to women in movies right before they died. Then she saw it. At first, she thought it was a shadow. Then she thought it was a large dog. Then she understood it was neither of those things. The wolf was caught in old barbed wire, the kind that had been abandoned in the forest decades ago. The wire was wrapped around one of its back legs and around its body. The animal was thrashing, and every time it moved, the wire cut deeper. Blood dripped onto the dead leaves. This was no ordinary wolf. It was enormous. Its fur was dark silver, almost black, with highlights that caught her flashlight beam and reflected back gold. When it saw her, it froze. Its eyes locked onto hers, and Maya felt something shift inside her chest. Those eyes were not animal eyes. They were intelligent. They were aware. They were looking at her like they were trying to tell her something important. "Okay," she whispered. She did not know why she was whispering. "Okay, I am going to help you." The wolf watched her as she moved closer. It did not attack. It did not growl. It just watched. Its breath came in short, sharp gasps. Its side heaved with the effort of staying still. The wire was worse up close. It had been cutting into the animal for a long time, maybe hours. The muscle was exposed in places, The blood was matted into its fur. Maya wanted to cry, but instead, she opened the multi-tool on her keychain and started to work. The wire was tough. It did not want to cut. Her hands shook as she worked, and she cut herself twice, deep enough to bleed. She did not stop. Every time the wolf moved, she held her breath, waiting for it to decide she was a threat. But it never did. It just lay there and let her work. It took almost an hour. When the last piece of wire fell away, the wolf did not immediately run. It just lay there, breathing hard, its entire body shaking. Maya sat back on her heels, breathing hard too, bleeding from both her hands. "Can you move?" she asked. The wolf pushed itself up slowly. Its back leg was bad. It could barely put weight on it, but it managed to stand. It took one step toward her, and then another. Then it sat down heavily, as if the effort had exhausted it completely. Maya made a decision that she would later understand was either the bravest or the stupidest thing she had ever done. "Come on," she said. She stood and started walking back toward the cabin. "Come on. You cannot stay out here." She did not know if the wolf would follow. She did not look back to check. She just walked, listening behind her for the sound of it limping through the forest. When she heard it, when she knew it was really following her, something in her chest loosened. The cabin was small, but it was warm. She left the door open, and the wolf limped inside, leaving a trail of blood on her clean floors. She did not care. She went to the kitchen and pulled out the emergency medical kit, and then she pulled out everything that looked like it might be food. She filled a bowl with water and set it in front of the wolf. Then she set down the chicken she had been planning to eat for dinner. The wolf drank the entire bowl of water and ate the chicken in 3 bites. "You are hungry," Maya said. "That means you are still alive, at least." She spent the next hour cleaning the wolf's wound. It was bad, worse than she had thought. She poured water over it, trying to flush out the dirt. She used antiseptic spray that she had for her own cuts. She wrapped it as best she could with clean cloths from her linen closet. The wolf did not bite her. It did not struggle. It just lay on her kitchen floor and let her help it, and that was somehow more heartbreaking than if it had fought her. When she was done, she led it to the bedroom. It limped after her, its whole body shaking with exhaustion. She had an old quilt on the floor near the window. She pointed at it. "Sleep here. Just sleep. Everything else can wait until morning." The wolf did not need to be told twice. It collapsed onto the quilt, its breathing immediately evening out. Within seconds, it was asleep. Maya sat on the edge of her bed and watched it breathe. In the lamplight, she could see just how massive it was. Its head alone was as big as a watermelon. Its paws were the size of her hand. She should be terrified. She should be calling animal control or a ranger station. She should be doing anything except sitting in her bedroom with a wild animal. Instead, she found herself talking. "I do not even know what you are," she whispered. "I do not know if you are going to wake up and eat me, but I think you needed help. And I think I needed to help someone, so maybe this is exactly what we both needed right now." The wolf's ears moved slightly, as if it had heard her. Maya went to bed that night and did not sleep. She lay in the dark and listened to the wolf breathing on the quilt beside her bed. It was the strangest thing that had ever happened to her. It was also, she realized, the first time in months that she had felt like she was connected to something larger than her own pain. When she woke up, it was because the sun was in her eyes. The wolf was standing at the window, looking out at the forest. Its back leg was visibly better. Not healed, but better. It was putting weight on it, shifting its stance carefully. "Good morning," Maya said. Her voice was rough with sleep. "How are you feeling?" The wolf turned and looked at her, those gold eyes again. They followed her as she got out of bed and put on the clothes she had left on the chair. The wolf sat and watched her move through the cabin, making coffee, checking the bandage on its leg. The wound was not infected. That was good. That meant she had done something right. "I need to give you a name," she said, more to herself than to the wolf. "I cannot just call you Wolf. It does not feel right." She thought about it while she drank her coffee. The wolf moved to the kitchen and lay down on the tile floor, its legs stretched out carefully. It watched her with those intelligent eyes. "Gabriel," she said suddenly. "Your name is Gabriel." The wolf's ears perked up, its head moved slightly, and she could have sworn there was recognition in its eyes. "Yes," she said. "You are Gabriel. I can feel it." Gabriel did not leave. By the end of the first week, Maya had accepted that this was her life now. She had a wolf living in her cabin. She went into town to work at the local hardware store 3 days a week, and when she came back, Gabriel was always there, waiting by the door. She told no one. It would have sounded insane, and there was something about keeping Gabriel as her secret that felt important, like this was something that belonged only to her. His leg healed faster than should have been possible. By 2 weeks, he was barely limping. By 3 weeks, he was running through the forest and coming back, his fur wet from the stream, his eyes bright with health. But he always came back. Every morning, she would wake and find him on the quilt by her bed. Every evening, when she came home, he would be at the window, waiting for her. He followed her from room to room when she was home. He slept when she slept. He seemed to breathe when she breathed. Maya had never had anyone love her like that. She had never had anyone choose her so completely. She started telling him things. About her marriage. About the way her husband had looked at her at the end, like she had become invisible to him. About the shame she felt, like something was wrong with her, like maybe she was just the kind of person that people stopped loving. Gabriel would put his massive head on her lap and listen. His gold eyes would follow her face as she talked. Sometimes she would cry, and his ears would go back, like her tears caused him pain. "You are a good listener," she told him one night in November. "Better than any person I have ever met. I think maybe you are the only one who has ever really heard me." The wolf made a soft sound, something between a whine and a growl. He stood and walked to the window. The moon was nearly full. Its light turned his silver fur almost white. Maya watched him and felt something shift inside her. Something that had been closed since her marriage ended was starting to open. The hunters came in December. There were 4 of them. They had trucks and guns and dogs that barked constantly. They were looking for a pack of wolves that had been seen in the area. They set up camp on the public lands near the cabin, which was close enough that Maya could hear them from her porch. She realized, with a sick feeling in her stomach, that they might be looking for Gabriel. "You have to leave," she told him that night. They were sitting in front of the fire, and she was running her fingers through his fur, something she did often now. His coat had become thick and glossy. He was healthy in a way that only wild things could be. "You have to go back to wherever you came from." Gabriel turned his head and looked at her. His gold eyes were serious. "I know it is dangerous for you here," she continued. "I know those hunters would probably shoot you if they found you. So you should go. You should leave me and go where it is safe." The wolf made a sound that was almost angry. He stood up and paced to the window. He looked out at the darkness, and she could see his body tense. Then he turned back to her, and he pressed his forehead against her chest. "I cannot let you go," she whispered. "I cannot be that person again. The person who loses everything. So please, please just leave before it is too late." Gabriel stayed, even as the hunters camped closer, even as she heard their dogs barking, tracking something through the forest, even as she begged him to leave. On the 3rd night of the hunters' camp, Maya made a choice. She packed a bag with water and snacks. She left a note on the table for the store owner, explaining that a family emergency had come up. She called in sick to her job. Then she got into her truck and drove down the logging road to where the hunters had set up camp. She was going to create a distraction. It was not a good plan, but it was the only plan she had. She drove slowly past their camp, letting them see her. One of them came out of the tent, a man with a weathered face and hard eyes. "Lost?" he asked. "No," she said. "I live up the road. I wanted to ask you not to hunt here. There are old logging roads, and people hike here sometimes. It is not safe to have guns." The man smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Ma'am, we have a right to hunt public land, and we are hunting something dangerous. A wolf. Big one. Maybe you should not be out here alone." "I am fine," she said. "I will stay in my cabin." She drove back the way she came, watching in her mirror to make sure they were watching her. Then she waited. 2 hours later, Gabriel came to her, but he was not alone. He was not in the form of a wolf anymore. He was standing in her kitchen, naked and human and impossible. He had the same gold eyes, the same dark hair that looked silver in the lamplight. His body was lean and strong, and marked with scars that looked like they came from battles that humans did not fight. Maya screamed. She could not help it. I know, he said. His voice was low and careful. I know this is a shock, but I did not have time to figure out another way to tell you. You are a man, she said stupidly. You are a human man. I am a wolf, he said. That is my first form, my true form. This is the other thing I can become. It is not a curse or a blessing. It is just what I am. And those hunters are about to burn your cabin down because they think you are hiding the wolf. We need to leave. Now. She could hear the hunters coming. She could hear their dogs and their voices and the sound of trucks. They were coming closer. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Why not just run? Gabriel looked at her with those gold eyes, and she felt like she could see centuries in them. All the time he had lived, all the things he had seen, all the loneliness. Because the wolf chose you, he said, and the wolf does not choose lightly. In all my long life, I have never chosen anyone, but I am choosing you now, so I need you to trust me. If I leave with you, she said, I have to leave everything. Yes, he said, I have to leave my job and my cabin and my whole life. Yes, you could have just left. I begged you to leave. Why did you not? Gabriel stepped closer. He put his hand over her heart, and she felt how warm it was. Because you were the first person who ever saw me, he said. Not the wolf, not the monster, me, and I could not abandon that. I could not be the person who leaves you. The sound of the trucks was getting louder. Do you trust me? He asked. Maya thought about her marriage, about the way trust had been broken slowly, over years, until there was nothing left. She thought about the fact that trusting this man was insane. He was not even fully human. He was not safe. He would always be dangerous. But he had stayed. When she asked him to leave, he had stayed. Yes, she said. I trust you. Gabriel took her hand. He pulled her toward the back door of the cabin. They ran into the forest just as the hunters' trucks pulled up to the front. She could hear them breaking the door down, could hear them calling out, looking for an animal that was no longer there. They ran through the trees, and she was gasping and stumbling, but Gabriel pulled her forward. He knew where to go. He knew the forest like he knew his own body. They did not stop until the cabin was far behind them, and the sounds of the hunters had faded into the distance. Gabriel stopped in a clearing. He was breathing hard, and Maya realized he was scared. This man, this creature, who had lived for centuries, was scared. What happens now? She asked. Now we decide, he said. I have to go back to my pack. I have a place there, a responsibility, but I can refuse it. I can leave them. I can choose a different life. Will they hunt you? She asked. Yes, he said, for a while, but not forever. Packs move on. They find new struggles. And if you stay with me? Gabriel pulled her close. She was cold and wet from running through the forest. He wrapped his arms around her and held her like she was the most fragile thing in the world. Then I am happy, he said. For the first time in my very long life, I would be happy. They made a camp in the forest that night. Gabriel found a cave and built a fire, and Maya sat wrapped in her own jacket, watching him move around the space like he owned it. He did, in a way. He belonged to the forest and the mountains in a way that she never would. Tell me about your pack, she said. So he told her. He had been born in a time when the world was very different, when the wild was not civilized yet. His pack had migrated across continents, had watched humans build cities and roads and turn the forest into something small and manageable. He had been a leader once. He had made decisions about where the pack hunted, about how they survived. But in the last 100 years, something had changed. The younger wolves wanted to adapt. They wanted to hide better, to move in human cities, to take human forms more often. Gabriel wanted them to remember what they were. He wanted them to stay wild. And then I met you, he said. And I understood that I was wrong, that the best of what we are is not in our speed or our strength or our wildness. The best is in our ability to choose, to see something worth choosing, and then to give up everything for it. You are giving up so much, Maya said. No, Gabriel said. I am giving up a very long life that was empty, and in return, I am getting a shorter life that is full. That is a good trade. They stayed in that cave for weeks. The hunters eventually gave up and left. Slowly, Maya and Gabriel moved back toward civilization. They found a small town in another state, far enough away that no one would know them. Gabriel worked odd jobs, using the false identification papers that he seemed to have stored in different places for occasions just like this. Maya found work as a nurse. They built a life together that was quiet and small, and nobody understood. Sometimes, in the deep night, she would wake and find Gabriel standing at the window in his human form, staring out at the darkness with those gold eyes. She would go to him and take his hand, and he would look at her like she was the only real thing in the world. "Do you ever regret it?" she would ask. "Choosing this? Choosing me?" And he would say the same thing every time, not for a single second. Years passed. They moved 3 more times, always following the pull of wild places, always staying at the edge of civilization, where the mountains were still visible on the horizon. Maya aged. She became a woman in her 40s, her hair starting to gray, her hands starting to show lines. Gabriel did not age. He stayed the same, forever caught in the body of a man in his 30s. "This will be hard," he told her once, "watching you change while I stay the same." "Then change," she said. "Find someone else. Find someone who will age with you." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "The wolf chose you, and the wolf does not choose again." They had a life that was not perfect. It was strange and complicated, and nobody would ever understand it. But it was theirs. In the end, that was enough. On the night that Maya died, she was 84 years old and sitting on the porch of a cabin that looked very much like the first one. Gabriel was sitting next to her, holding her hand. They were watching the forest, just like they always did. "I am scared," she said. "I know," Gabriel said, "but you do not have to be alone. I will be here. I will always be here." Her last words were, "The wolf chose well." Gabriel sat on that porch for 3 days after she died. He did not move. He did not eat. He just sat there, holding the hand of the woman who had saved him, understanding finally that he had been wrong about something. He had thought he was saving her by staying. Really, she had saved him. She had given him back his humanity by choosing him when he was least human. She had shown him that the greatest strength was not in the wild, or the hunt, or the ancient power of the pack. It was in the choice to stay, to build something, to love something so completely that you would give up eternity for it. When he finally stood up, Gabriel did not transform. He walked into the forest on 2 human legs, and he walked until he found the pack. And he told them what he had learned. Some of them understood, some of them did not, but they let him go, and he lived the rest of his very long life knowing that he had had one perfect thing. And that was more than most creatures, human or otherwise, ever get.